We still have a lot more to go today, Wednesday, and Thursday. Each year we try to really do all we can to deliver something that's wonderfully engaging, enlightening, educational for you to some degree, and I think most importantly, entertaining. And very much by design, there's no theme to the Thought Leadership Program for Advertising Week. It's a blend of things that are sort of hot and of the moment, a lot of that technology-driven, and then conversations with just really, really interesting people who have wonderful stories to tell, who have emerged from, the masses to become the extraordinary. And when Kathleen suggested that they might have an opportunity to have a conversation with Tom, we were absolutely thrilled. We're huge fans of yours, Tom. I am still hungry. And without further ado, Kathleen and Tom, this should be terrific. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. These cushions are so huge, I'm going to take them down, so do forgive me. We had the same trouble yesterday, but they're very glorious. Lovely to see so many of you here, particularly acting as chair for the advisory board. I have a real heart in Advertising Week Europe, and so in our third year, it's great that we see so many people. If you were out last night at some of the VIP events with ITV or with Sky or with Spotify, I'm glad that you're sort of slightly not so bleary-eyed. I certainly had a very fantastic time last night. So as you know, I'm also the founder and the chief exec of the Lighthouse company, which is really about looking after, representing, finding, interviewing, analysing and helping those leaders in the industry, particularly in the advertising industry, but also entertainment and media as well. But creativity is always at the sort of heart of what we're looking for, to really understand how a person ticks, what really makes them build what they build in the world, whether that's as an entrepreneur or a corporate leader of a firm. And actually, for us, it's about who's really pioneered in their field, who's just done something different, who's been brave, who's stuck their neck out and really shown their true colours in what they want to do. And so Tony Samways, who some of you know works with me, actually went to catering college with the lovely man I'm about to introduce and said to me, hey, what about getting someone like Tom, who really has had quite an interesting background working his way up and through the industry from relatively humble roots. And so today for me it was about us sort of having a slightly different stance than a headhunter, but actually applying a bit more psychology to what we do and understanding what's the heart and soul of an individual and what has made him become what he is today and what are his dreams going forward. So I think some of you may know a little bit about Tom. He is a son, he's a brother, he's a husband, he's a dog owner, he's a business owner, he's an author, broadcaster, presenter, writer, tweeter, we'll come on to that, Tom, and of course a 2 Michelin-starred chef, which is a very special thing. With his restaurant, The Hand and Flowers in Marlow, often having a waiting list of over a year, and his new venture, The Coach, already generating rave reviews, this man is an exceptional example of how true passion and vision can take a boy from the West Country to the heights of culinary mastery. With some of his more public achievements, you would have seen The Great British Menu, MasterChef, Saturday Kitchen, Food and Drink, and some of you, if you were here early enough, will have his new book, Best Ever Dishes. Spring Kitchen, as you know, has been on BBC One most recently, and he's just started his new column in the Daily Mail. So let's face it, there's a bit less of him physically, we'll talk about that too, than there was a year ago. So lots to discuss, so will you please welcome Tom Kerridge.
Thank you. Hello. Thanks, mate.
So
I need to sit down after all that. I can't believe I've done all that.
There's more to come, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Tom hasn't been in a church for quite some time. He wasn't married in a church, so this is all quite new for Tom. My father was a church organist, so this is quite familiar to me.
Yeah.
We'll do confessions afterwards, by the way, if that's all right with you.
I have a lot to confess.
I cannot wait.
We might be here for a while.
So born 27th of July 1973, you're younger than me.
Yeah, but I don't look it, mate.
Trust me, you look very young. Your eyes are very sparkly. Tell us where it began. Where was home? Where did it all begin for you?
Home is Gloucester. I was actually born in Wiltshire, in a hospital in a place called Odstock, funnily enough, which my mum always found really funny. But I never lived there, so it was the only hospital that could fit my mum in on the day. So at that point, she was living in Bristol. Where Wiltshire had me, the next day I was back in Bristol. I was there for a year, but then I moved to Gloucester when I was 1, so it wasn't. So Gloucester is my hometown. That's where I count as where I'm from. Although, even though it's always been my hometown, I've never felt rooted to it. I think that's part of the reason why I've never felt like Marlow is the most I feel at home I've ever felt at home where I'm at now. But I think that's probably because I have West Country roots, but I never lived in the place I was born, so it's quite a weird, I've never felt that's where I belong, so I've been quite happy to move to London, to Marlow, to Norfolk, to wherever else, so it's not, there's never anywhere that's been...
Where would you credit your accent from, which is so
that's
beautiful?
Gloucester.
That's
definitely Gloucester.
Okay,
yeah,
just
yeah,
to be
yeah.
clear. So tell us a bit about Mum and Dad. I know Mum and Dad got divorced at 11, and you talk a lot about Mum, but just tell me a little bit about them both, if you can.
So I didn't have a relationship with my father, really. My mum and dad were... he wasn't the best of husbands, is probably the best way of describing it. But then he also had MS, which he found out, I think at a fairly young age. He found out when he was around about 40. Actually, no, he'd have been younger than that. So, which played a big part, and I think in the way, in his behaviour. I think when you find out that you have an illness, especially 30 years ago, medicine now controls it a lot easier. So 30 years ago, when you find you have an illness that you have no understanding of, probably plays on your mind quite a lot. So they ended up getting divorced when I was 11 years old. But my mum and dad it was a rocky relationship before that.
But then we had Mum Jackie, who you talk about so affectionately.
Yeah, well, to be honest, since my mum and dad split up, my dad was very ill, and then he died when I was 18. So between the ages of 11 and 18, he was so ill to the point that he didn't really recognise myself or my brother, or we didn't have. So there wasn't a father figure in my life. So my mum provided everything in terms of work. She worked as a secretary for the council. But then she would also work in the evenings to make sure that myself and my brother that we didn't feel that we weren't getting anything. We didn't miss out on anything. We didn't have the coolest pair of Nike trainers, but we had trainers. So we never felt that we went without. But yeah. My mum was she would go to the rugby matches with us. She's big into sport anyway, but she was supportive of everything that we did. She became a mother and a father in those sort of terms. And I went to an all-boys school as well. So I went to an all-boys comprehensive school that was like in the middle of 3 council estates. So there was a lot of male influence there, not just by peers, but also by, you come from Gloucester, the only thing you do there is you either become a builder or play rugby, pretty much. Isn't that right, Tony? Tony's very good at rugby.
He's kept that
rubbish at building.
He's kept that very hidden from me, let me tell you.
So male influence on my life, I didn't feel that it was ever short, because I spent a lot of time in rugby clubs and with blokes, so it wasn't an issue. So my mum was, but she was amazing.
You said in many interviews that you credit her with your work ethic, but also your ability to get on and like people.
Yeah, my mum's very personable. She likes people. I'm very fortunate as a chef. Like, you see so many are very precious about what they do. And I think sometimes chefs forget where they're supposed to be and what they're supposed to be doing. And they cook, you get so many chefs come from working class backgrounds, but they end up working in beautiful 5-star hotels, like the Ritz or wherever, and they work in these beautiful places. And they're creating food for customers that they think that they would never spend any time with. They're not their peers. They're incredibly rich foreign travellers or people that are staying in beautiful hotels up and down the country. But they're chefs that don't really cook true to their roots. And I find that quite a bizarre kind of thing that chefs do.
Yeah, I understand that completely. We'll come on to that a little bit later, I'm sure. Now, you talked about starting to cook after the divorce with your younger brother Sam and sort of taking care of him to some degree and cooking for him. Tell us of some of your culinary delights at such a young age.
Oh, baked beans with curry powder in, fish fingers with burnt on one side, that's like everybody kind of cooks.
I quite like a burnt fish finger, to be fair.
The worst thing that I ever did once was put pot rice, when I used to do pot rice, is I put extra rice in to see if it would cook, and it didn't, because obviously the rice you put in is freeze-dried, but I didn't know that, so I ruined a whole pot rice. It was disastrous. It was the worst 70 pence I'd ever spent.
And tell me, were you naughty as a kid? Were you naughty at school?
No, yes and no. To a point. It was an all-boys comprehensive school in the middle of 3 council estates, so you can imagine the kind of kids that were there. I mean, we were all fairly raucous and all fairly like naughty teenage boys that would set fire to things and blow things up and steal mopeds and all drink cider and just be like any normal. But because it was high intensity, there was like 1,200 pupils in the school. There was 35 to 40 in a class. It was quite. I mean, it was pretty full on. I can imagine being a teacher. Actually, I look back at it now and think, oh my God, that was the worst job in the world. I couldn't imagine walking into class 4B and walking in and there was like me and the rest 40 other kids that were setting fire to a Bunsen burner. And
hadn't found deodorant probably at that point, to be fair.
Yeah, setting fire to the shaving foam. I actually did that in my bedroom floor. I then lived 3 years in my bedroom floor in the house where we lived with a massive burn stain in the carpet where we set fire to shaving foam because we thought it was funny, and then the house almost went up. But, you know, those sort of
very
things,
normal.
Naughty things that were like, but not to the point of being
No.
really bad. I loved school. I skived quite a bit, but not because I hated it, because I thought it'd be a laugh doing something else. I was easily distracted. I go on to another thing quite quickly. I'm quite easily. So skiving school was one of it, but going to school was fun because you were amongst all your naughty boyfriends, and so it was all like a really good laugh.
What did you think at that stage you wanted to do? Did you have any crazy ideas of what you thought you wanted to be?
Absolutely nothing. I had zero idea, and I didn't really care. I ended up being, and that wasn't a problem because everyone was being told what you need to go, you need to get GCSEs, you need to try and get A-levels, you need to go to college, you need to go and do this, and they're forcing down throats education and trying to further yourself. And I do understand all of that. But actually from my mum, there came a point of saying it doesn't matter what you want to do, as long as when you find what you want to do, you do it 100%. You do it the best. It doesn't. There's no. How can you expect a 14-year-old to make a decision of what they want to do for the rest of their life? It's not. I do understand why people then want to go into university. I knew I didn't want to go to college. I mean, that wasn't. I knew that I wasn't. As an academic person, that isn't where I excelled. Doing things I was good at. Doesn't matter what it was. Just doing stuff I was all right at. So
now, there was something you were quite good at that you did very early on, which involved Miss Marple, I believe.
Not good at. That's it. I ended up on television before now as a 17-year-old. So what happened was myself and my best friend Neil Wright, who's another friend that Tony knows, who's still in the industry, in the acting industry. We ended up going to a youth theatre because it was kind of like fun, and we were two working class kids from Gloucester that ended up going to a youth theatre in Cheltenham. Now, Cheltenham is very different to Gloucester. It's lovely, and the kind of people that go to a youth theatre in Cheltenham are pretty girls from the Cheltenham's Ladies College. So it was kind
now
of,
I see the link.
So as a 16-year-old, it was kind of like, well, this is quite a cool place to be, and pretty girls from Cheltenham Ladies College at 16 have an interest in working class rough kids from Gloucester. So it's kind of like, it kind of worked for me. I quite liked it. It was quite good fun. And then there was an agent who came to see one of the shows, to see one of the girls in the show, and then and asked if I'd like to be on her books. And I was like, yeah, whatever, sure, no problem. And then 3 weeks after that, I was filming the Christmas special of Miss Marple, which was where I played a Borstal boy I look back at it now and think, that's really cool. I was on screen with Joan Hickson, the original Miss Marple. How amazing is that? But so I played a Borstal boy in that. And then I went on and did about, within the next 18 months, I did about 5 parts. I played a thief from a hotel. I played 2 different school bullies in 2 different shows. And then I did a part in London's Burning, and the official title, the character name was Thug 1. And I was like, so I was kind of like 17, 18. I thought, I'm just playing these parts that chunky West Country fat kids get. I wasn't really interested in it. So it kind of, even though I did it, 2 weeks work and getting £500 as a 17-year-old back in 1990 is pretty cool.
That'd have bought you a car probably then.
It did buy me a car. I had that car for 2 weeks.
What did you have?
I had an MG Montego.
No one likes to show off, Tom.
No. And when you show off in it and overtake someone on a blind corner just outside Nottingham and write it off, then I did that. So I had it for 2 weeks. I
I
bought the car. I had no insurance, so it was gone.
To that point, What was the proudest moment of your childhood? What was the flip of that? What do you look back on and think, do you know what, I really did achieve something despite my age?
As my childhood?
Yeah.
I don't know. I captained the rugby team once in a final of a competition that played at Kingsholm, which I think is probably quite a cool thing to have done. But I don't look back at childhood in terms of achievement. I look back at it fondly. I think it was great. It was ace. I absolutely loved it. Every minute of it was brilliant. In terms of achievement, I don't think I achieved very much apart from having a good laugh.
Well, achieved happiness. That's a wonderful thing. You seem a very settled soul.
I achieved happiness. That is my greatest goal.
There you go.
That's what I did as a childhood. I achieved happiness.
Wonderful. Now, we know your mum bought you a book, Marco Pierre White book, that was the original inspiration for you to start cooking. Yeah. Tell us the story between that book and then getting to Cheltenham Catering College.
Well, it was all pretty much at the same time, to be honest. So I got the White Heat cookbook as an 18, 19-year-old, and it was... So then chefs at that point in this country were... Every cookbook that you had was French written, and they were almost textbook style. They were almost a recipe with maybe an illustrated drawing or maybe a really rubbish photograph, and the picture of the chef was this guy in really long white apron with polished shoes and a tall chef's hat and a pristine apron. And when I was in the kitchen, that is not how we looked. We looked like shit. We worked really hard. We had rubbish high-tech trainers on. We had burns. We were tired. I used to smoke loads. You smoke. You go out really late at night. You just looked like it was different to the textbook. And all of a sudden, White Heat came along, and then there's Marco Pierre White, who looks like he was our leader. All of a sudden, there was a picture of this guy that was, I am that guy. We are that. We are part of this motley crew of pirates, and from that's where it stayed. Although kitchens have become more and more professional in terms of the way that they're run in structure now, but all of a sudden it was a book that was real, that inspired every chef, British chef my age, of a generation, that without doubt that book changed everything, changed the culinary world. It will be looked back for years that without that book, the culinary scene in this country would not be the same.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's phenomenal.
Now, whenever I watch MasterChef and the bit where they send people into a professional kitchen for the first time, it utterly terrifies me. I'm quite a brave person, but the thought of having to make, 16 duck dishes under pressure just terrifies me, and all the shouting and all the rest of it. Yeah. When you're training, how do you learn to become resilient to that? Because I guess if you can't cope with that, you're going to run out in tears most of the time. Yeah,
you have to learn to not take it personally. They're high-pressure environments because customers are demanding people. Like when you go out, I'll be honest with you, sometimes I think people have their priorities massively wrong. Like when people completely kick off in a restaurant about a portion of chips that came after their main course or something, or like it's the end of the world, and they write letters and they demand money, and it's like, hold on a minute, a portion of chips is £4 for a portion of chips. I do understand your whole evening, but your evening hasn't been ruined. If
it might be their stuff going on, I'd imagine.
People are demanding, so those structures, those pressures are put on you as a chef and as a business owner, that you want to make sure that, I hate answering emails of complaint. Like, I don't want them. So to make them not happen, you have to make it right in the first place. Mm-hmm. So people have lots of period and time to bed into a kitchen and to settle. And when you look from the kitchen from outside and there's 15 chefs running around and shouting and screaming and think, if there's lots of shouting and screaming going on, that means it's gone wrong. It needs to stay fast movement and things, pressured environments without shouting and screaming means it's right. If things are getting shouting and screaming, something's gone wrong somewhere.
Yeah.
And if you look at it from the outside, it's very confusing and you think, oh my God, I could never cope in this environment. But the reality is that you stand on one section and you learn, as a young chef, you learn that dish, you learn that bit, or you learn that small part of that dish. And the kitchen is structured that there might be 4 different areas that are bringing something up for one dish. You just have to listen, concentrate on your little bit, and the person at the front is worrying about everything else. So as a young chef, as long as you're getting the little bit, the responsibility you're given right, then you progress. And the moment that you've learned how to do that right, you have to then start doing other stuff. You have to push yourself to be doing other people's jobs and push push them out of the way. I mean, I suppose it's like any other business. As a young, the first thing that I wanted to be in the kitchen would be faster, quicker, stronger, and better than everybody else, and that was it. And that's
where did that competitive nature come from?
I have absolutely no idea. Like, I have no idea. I fucking hate losing. I hate losing. Like, I cannot bear it. I hate playing cards. I hate playing Monopoly. I hate the idea of losing.
I'm surprised Tony Samways is still alive then. I'm sure
Yeah,
you
we
must
never
have played him
played
at cards.
cards. No, we
Okay,
never
that's the
played cards.
secret to your relationship,
Yeah.
right? Okay, now I understand. Tom, you went on to obviously work at a number of very interesting restaurants, two of which were two of my favourites, Odette's and Bellamy's, because I
Yeah.
think they're so homely. There's something very welcoming about them. What was it about? How did you choose, or was it your choice, if you like?
Those were probably the two worst restaurants I worked
Oh
in.
no, don't tell me that. You'll break my
Sorry.
heart.
But they were, they are comfortable in terms of they were neighbourhood restaurants.
Yes.
So in terms of a career path, I wanted to learn as much as I could from as many people. I worked out early on that as a chef, it's a transient career and you move from kitchen to kitchen to kitchen and you learn, process and ideas. It's kind of like, the way I see it, I have an argument with my wife constantly. My wife's an artist, and we have this argument. She says that it's artistic, and I say it's not, it's a trade. I'm like a really good bricklayer. I've learned a trade. I've learned pieces. I'll build the best wall going. You know, I just understand the process. And I've gone through kitchens. I wanted to learn as much as I could to then be able to build my own process.
Yeah.
So Odette's, I actually went to Odette's. I left Gary Rhodes. I worked at Gary Rhodes for quite a while. I went to Odette's because it was near to where I lived. And I got to a point where I was 26 at Gary Rhodes, and I was a sous chef. I was sous chef there, and I was, it was one of the busiest restaurants in London, and I was not almost at breaking point, but it was I put myself under an immense amount of pressure, and decided that I needed to take. I was actually going to drive a van for the veg company. I thought, that's it. I'm walking away from it. I've had enough. I can't do this anymore. 3 hours sleep a night, getting up, getting back, like working in basement kitchens. It was just. And Beth took me for dinner at Odette's, because it was 10 minutes away from where we lived, and it was very comfortable. It was really nice, and I just thought, do you know what? I could probably work here just for a minute.
Yeah, just
so
for a breath.
I rang them the next day, asked if they got any jobs, and they said yeah. So I went the next day and handed my notice in at Gary Rhodes and went and worked there. And I was planning on doing 6 months there to take stock, and I ended up working there for 18 months actually, because it was just a nice place to be.
That's right at the time.
Yeah, it was right at the time.
Understood. During these times at other restaurants, did you ever think that you would own your own restaurant? Was it always an ambition?
No, never. That's come. The success of the Hand of Flowers and owning a business has come from my wife and my wife's family.
Yeah,
so my wife and my wife's family are all self-made people. They've all done very well. They all work for themselves. Whereas I've always been that person that goes, I know how much I earn. I've got a job. That means I can rent a flat that costs me this much. I can spend this much. I can do that, and that's my pay packet.
Yeah,
and then
understood.
I spend that little bit extra so that I'm always in my overdraft. So I'd always been that person.
Yeah.
So then the idea of owning my own business was not anything that, because it was a risk that I'd never ever thought that I would take.
Understood.
And then when I took it, it's the best thing ever. I could never work for anybody ever again. I would just take risks now. I mean,
Yeah.
what's there to lose? Just take risks.
Perfect. Well, listen, seeing as Beth's come up, let's talk about your lovely wife, Beth. So how did you meet her? Where did you meet her? How did you know she was the one?
I met her in a comedy club in North London. It was a flatmate of myself and Tony. There's a guy called Tim, who is...
Tim, Tony and Tom?
Yeah,
How
Tim,
did that
Tony,
work?
Tom and Adam. And Neil. We were all... Yeah, it was a big flat.
Thank goodness for that.
With no heating. It was really cold. Neil's room used to have ice on the inside in the winter. Tim worked for a great artist called Sir Anthony Caro, and Beth also worked for them as technicians.
Yeah.
And it was Tim's birthday one evening, and I ended up with a Friday evening off. I just got in, it was about 7 o'clock, and I really didn't want to go out. It was the last thing I wanted to do, but Adam, who's Tim's brother, who's also my best man at my wedding, was, come on, you have to come on out, it's Tim's birthday. So I grumpily went out, and I walked into a bar where we were meeting, and this mental northern bird came up to me, and the first sentence she said was, "Give me £3 for the stripper." And I went, And from that night, we've been together
The rest
since.
is history.
I was like, who is this girl? She's amazing.
How amazing.
The stripper never turned up either. So I still don't
Tom,
know
there
quite
was no
whether it was a
stripper.
blag or not for her to get £3 for a pint. But
And how did you ask her to marry you?
I didn't. She asked me.
Did she? Good
Yeah.
woman.
Yeah, she asked me. Well, she's ballsy. So it was 3 months after we'd been together. And she came down, she met me from work. I was working in Leicester Square. And I finished at about 1 in the morning. Beth, we used to go out a lot. It was some of the best times of my life, remembering going out when I finished work at 12:30, 1 o'clock, and we would go out into Soho, where I was based, and Neil was based, and Tony was round the corner, and we'd all meet up, and we'd all go out, and then we'd go out all night, and then we'd go for breakfast, 5 or 6 in the morning, and then get a taxi home, and then sleep all day Sunday. So it was just some of the best times ever. But Beth came down from Stafford, from Stoke-on-Trent, one night, met me at midnight, hung around in the restaurant until I finished, went out, we went into Leicester Square, and she pulled out a bottle of champagne and asked if I would marry her. So Beth, I was too scared to say no, so, so I said yes, and we got married.
And here you are.
And here we are.
And so you got married in King's Cross. You had your bash in a pub, I understand, a very lovely pub.
Yeah, so Beth, again, she's not like a fairy tale princess that wanted this wonderful white wedding dress and a church wedding. It wasn't really anything that we bought into. For me, getting married in a church felt a little contradictory, because I haven't been since I was christened. So I thought it would be a bizarre thing to do, to then go and pretend that you're Christian and get married and smile, and just for the sake of it. So we thought of what we were going to do. We were originally going to get married in London Zoo, because they just at that point got wedding licenses, but Beth didn't want to be upstaged by chimpanzees, which I kind of understand. So we got married actually in a theatre just in King's Cross, and then everyone, and we didn't know who to invite as well. So we invited everybody. Like, there was 250 plus people there, like people I don't even know who their names were, that drink in the pub where we lived. Like, locals, just like, what are you doing Saturday? We're getting married. Do you want to come? They're like, yeah, all right. So it was a big theatre, full with, and then we got everyone on double-decker buses, and then we went to a pub in King's Cross that we had the whole place, and we had steak and chips, fish and chips.
Perfect. Sounds delicious.
Yeah.
And obviously, as you said, Beth is an artist. She's a sculptor and was very successful in her own right, but then decided to really help partner you in this business, and to some degree, from what I've read, took on a lot of the running of the business so that you could go and create, if you like. Yeah. That's one hell of a sacrifice. That must be one hell of a woman. Yeah,
no, she's incredible. She's amazing. She's just almost, well, it's weird. It's, as an artist, there's no end. There's no end. You just are. And you just keep making art until you die. As a chef, there's a point where you come out of the kitchen because your knees hurt and you're too tired and you can't be there at 1 o'clock in the morning scrubbing the stove. As an artist, you just are. And I think some of the best art is made when people have lived a little. And at the point where Beth decided, we were living in London, so we both had jobs in London, and Beth had a very small studio. At that point, it was really shitty, but it was Shoreditch. So she rented a space there, but she didn't have the time to make art. But we had the money to buy a bit of material. But she doesn't want to make. She's never been the struggling artist, the person that, like you meet artists that, struggle, live in shitty clothes and just to create art and just be about like all that pretentious stuff. She's not about that. She's about making statements that work for her. So we decided that if we were going to be able to, for Beth to make uncompromised art and for me to cook, the only way we could do this is by take it into our own hands and open a business. So Beth decided that she would run front of house and I'd run the kitchen, and then we see where we are. She said we'll give it 3 years, and it took about 7 to be at the point where Beth is now making uncompromised art using materials that she wants to use, which turns out isn't paper mache. Turns out it's bronze and marble. It's a massive lump of marble and things, isn't it? Yeah, and I've read about this. Yeah. So 2005, though, was the beginning of the Hand and Flowers for you guys. Yeah. But then within a year, you'd won your first Michelin star. How do you get one? I never understood the process to getting a star. So it's weird because people think you apply for it or you do. The Michelin Guide is unquestionably the finest restaurant guide that the world has ever seen. And our journalists would argue all the time that it doesn't move with fashion and it doesn't move with trend and it doesn't move with... That's because it's not about fashion or a trend. It's about consistency and quality. And that's all it focuses on. It's like a Chanel black dress. It was amazing in 1950. It's still amazing now. It doesn't have to be the most fashionable and trendy thing. Yeah. We need trends in the restaurant scene, and we need new cutting-edge technique, and we need, because then that, from all the like smoke screen that comes from this new restaurant or this new idea or this, you can cut away all the faff, and 2 years later there might be something that's come from that that's a really good idea that stays, and Michelin recognise that. And what happens is they just constantly visit restaurants and they see what's good and what's not good, and they follow chefs and CVs, and they understand who's a head chef at a certain place and who's a sous chef and who's working where. And when we opened the Hand of Flowers, the first letter I sent was to Michelin saying that I used to work here, here's my CV, I am now in this pub and we own this building. So, you know.
And do they turn up in disguise?
Well, they just turn up. You don't know who they are. They turn up, they eat, and then they leave. And maybe once every 18 months they will announce and give you a card and have a little look round, yeah. And then other times they won't. From my understanding, if you're a place without a star and they're looking at giving you a star, they will visit at least 3 or 4 times within a year.
For this consistency that you talk about. For consistency,
and then to go from 1 to 2 stars. I know that we had 8 visits in the year that we went from 1 to 2 stars. And I know that because I spoke to them and said, when we got the 2 stars, I thanked them very much, and we didn't know that they'd been in that year. Okay. And they said there's been over 8 inspections. No, actually, they said we've eaten the whole menu this year. And at that point, I had 8 main courses on.
Do they pay for them? Clearly they must
God,
do.
Yeah. Yeah, they pay and leave. You never know. And that's why the guide is so great and so credible, because they pay and leave. You can't influence them in any way, and they are not influenced. So people moan that the Michelin guide doesn't change every year, that there's no new 3 stars, that there's no new 2 stars, or there's no... Well, they'll be there when they're ready.
When it's ready.
When it's ready.
How did it... So 2012, you got your 2nd Michelin star. How does that feel?
It was a 2012 guide. It was October the 18th, 2011 was the official date.
Sorry, I stand corrected.
That's ingrained in my memory. I love the fact
it's in your memory. How wonderful.
I'm considering having it tattooed, but I'm not. They might say, no, really. Like, it's the greatest thing ever.
What percentage of chefs ever get 2? We'll come on to 3 in a minute, but...
There are 20, I think it's 20, maybe 21 establishments in the UK with 2 stars.
That's it?
That's it, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's quite a big thing, and we're the only pub in the world to have it.
Congratulations to you.
Thank you. But a lot of that is down to personal drive, but that is down to team. Like everybody knows, in business, create anything, it's all about team and people. So it's first and foremost, it's about people that believe in what you believe in and have the same work ethic. And I'm very fortunate that I have so many people that work for us in the business that treat the business as if it was their own. And that's the most important, and that's how we've got to where we've got, because, I massively look after staff. Not once ever has it ever been about making money. It has to make money to survive, and it has to make profit to reinvest. So profit is always being reinvested. The Hand of Flowers, from when it opened 2005 to now 2015, is a completely different animal. But in terms of money in the bank, there's still not much difference, but the business, the property, the whole idea is worth a lot more. The people, that's the most important. I relate to that.
I think even in our business at the Lighthouse, I think it's about, we always say, do the right thing and the money will follow. I think that's really important, and it is about reinvesting rather than taking the money out. Katie Price, we interviewed this morning, she said the same thing about her business, which is keep investing in it, keep making it better, and then everything else will come from there. So now, talking of money and banks, etc., you've been described as being unfailingly jolly. But tell me about what happened when the bankers didn't follow what they promised they would follow.
So 2008 was when I suppose the credit crunch first kicked in, and we bought a small little cottage next to the Hand of Flowers that we converted into 2 rooms so people could stay, and we did that by selling a flat that we had in London, because we thought if we sell the flat in London, this is investing in our business. So instead of someone just paying you rent in London, we can actually make this property work. And then right next door to it, the second cottage came up for sale, and it's way too soon for the business. But we inquired with the bank to see if they would lend the money. So they lent the money to buy the business, to buy the property, and they assured us that they would lend us the money for refurb. The moment we bought the property, they pulled the plug, which meant that we had a property that we either have to make payments on, otherwise the bank repossess, but we couldn't afford to turn it into 2 rooms. We couldn't afford to turn it into 2 rooms. So we had to make a decision of how we were going to make this work, and we spent 2 years, 20 phone calls a day, fighting off suppliers, banks, bailiffs, everybody. We had, Beth didn't sleep. It was just, it was really, really, really hard. So we ended up not paying VAT for a year, which I wouldn't recommend.
Jimmy Carr's speaking this afternoon. He can talk about that a little bit.
I wouldn't have any comment to make on that. But it was very, very difficult, and very, very difficult for the business. But we managed to refurb the cottage through not paying the VAT, so it came through turnover, business turnover. So instead of putting 20% away to pay the VAT man, we were spending it on the house and fighting the VAT man off, and then fighting the butcher off, and paying people little bit by little people. But people bought into what we did. Some suppliers didn't. Some people realised that what we were doing, we would make it through it. Yeah. So in suppliers, like our veg guy was being the most incredible guy, supportive, and gave us 6 months no veg fee. It was just like, okay, just get on, just make the business work. And we did, and then it's turned around the other way, which is amazing. But it got to a point where me and Beth had no money. There was nothing. The business was really, really rocky. Every day we'd wake up wondering if it was going to close by the end of play that day. And then on a Friday night, once we'd finished service on a Friday night, we'd clean everything down, and I would get 2 KitchenAids and 2 Kenwood mixers, and I would make, throughout Friday night, I'd make 150 loaves of bread throughout the night on Friday. So I'd be finished by 7:30, 6:30, 7:30 in the morning, and then Beth would come in, and we'd take all the loaves, and we borrowed a little garage front on Marlow High Street, and then Beth would sell the bread throughout the day, and I would then continue to work at the Hand of Flowers all day Saturday, so I would do a 48-hour shift. Wow. And we'd make 300 quid, and that was our money for the week. So you go all those sort of things that you'd have to do, and that was 2010. Probably.
Not so long ago.
Yeah, not so long ago.
What a partnership, though, to just get stuck in together in that
way,
and for people around you to support you.
The end result is like, well, what do we do? Yeah. I couldn't do anything else. So we go, you have to dig deep, and you have to do it. The funniest thing about it was that I'd then finished work at 6:30 in the morning, and at that point I think, well, I deserve a pint now. So I pour myself a pint, so I'd be there in the morning in my chef whites having a pint at 6:30 in the morning, just as the veg guy would be turning up. And it'd be the oddest look, because he'd be like, oh my God, he's starting drinking now? Like I've just turned up, but morning.
Seeing as the drinking's come up, let's chat about that. So obviously you've lost, correct me if I'm wrong, sort of 10 stone pretty much.
Yeah, I'm counting.
10 stone and counting in the last year.
No, 2 years.
2 years, okay.
2 years.
But you credit it with mostly booze, managing carbs, and taking up swimming.
Yeah.
That's a hell of a lot of booze I'd have thought to give up.
Oh yeah, I was very good at it. I was an Olympic beer drinking champion.
But I don't recall reading about you being particularly drunk. So you just could consume it well.
I was just massive drink. I was so good at it. I would be. So the catering industry is full of mental lunatics that party hard, play hard. Like we finish work at midnight, then we go out, then you party really hard, and then you're back in at work at 7:30. So in between those 7.5 hours, you have to go out, smash in a massive boozy session,
You're talking to media people, they're relating to this.
Yeah. Go to bed, get back up, and then go and do the same thing again. And it was every day. Every day. Like I built a reputation of being the best drinker in the industry. Like last man standing, no matter what.
That competitive nature you see is coming back in again.
No, that is what it is. I would be like, I ain't going to bed yet. He's not gone to bed. I'm staying till he goes.
I'm surprised Tony Samways is still alive in that case.
Yeah. Me too, actually.
So with that, obviously, I know you gave up smoking literally overnight when you decided, and you said the same with alcohol. You just decided that was it, I'm giving up.
Yeah, I can't not be on the naughty step. There's no such thing as a pint of beer. There is no such thing as that. Like,
did you have withdrawal symptoms? Did you feel it?
Only weirdly habit-wise, not in terms of, God, I need a drink. In terms of, it's breaking a habit. I think it was like when I gave up smoking. I mean, I haven't smoked for 20 odd years, but it's like you wake up in the morning, you have a coffee and a cigarette. So it's that habit. If you wake up in the morning just have the coffee, it's breaking that mindset of going. So I didn't drink throughout the day at all. Yeah. Like I didn't drink. I would finish service and then start drinking. So the amount that I used to drink, which was huge, big figures, would be by midnight. So then when I went to bed at 2:30, 3 o'clock, then to get up again at 7, it was like kind of like, I mean, it's the habit. It's that bit of not drinking then and going, I'll have a Diet Coke, please. And then once you've got into that habit, it wasn't that hard. I like the challenge. Again, it's the competitive. I did a week away with 2 chef mates. They're my closest mates. They're brilliant and they're massive naughty boys, heavy drinkers, mentalists. And we did a whole week in Argentina. And I didn't have a drink once. And I loved the challenge of being with them, out with them, videoing them, and then showing them the videos in the morning and going, this is you. How are you, my friends? And then I like the challenge of getting on the plane and coming back, going, that was amazing. I did a whole week.
So what's going to be next?
I don't know.
What are you giving up next?
I don't know. What else is
I'll
there
leave you to think on it.
Yeah.
Who knows? We'll
maybe
see.
I live on caffeine. I do a lot.
We're going to come on to caffeine in a bit. I've got a question for you on caffeine in a second. So clearly, difficult times with the bankers, but then it all starts to come good.
Yeah, I think Great British Menu 2010 worked really well because I won Great British Menu. So I went on there and all of a sudden, Great British Menu is a phenomenal TV programme where it's showcased people's and different restaurants from up and down the country, which was amazing. So to go on there, I thought, well, it's advertising. What's the worst that can happen? Just don't be a dickhead. Just cook, see what happens.
Which judge were you most concerned about? Who's most picky?
I think Oliver Payton is never scared of saying his mind. Prue has huge credibility for who she is, but Matthew Fort is one of the most highest regarded food restaurant critics of his time. The 90s, Matthew Fort's writing was phenomenal. So I think impressing Matthew Fort is always the biggest one.
It's the big thing. I can understand that. So you then successfully, that's the restaurant's back on its feet, and then you decide earlier on this year to open up the Coach.
Yeah, that opened on December the 1st last year. So it was. So again, that's a combination. That happens as people, business and people. So I have these people that work with me. Aaron, who's my head chef's been with me for 8 years. Lourdes, my general manager, is for 8.5. Then Nick, who was sous chef at the Hand Flowers for 4.5 years. And Claire, who's assistant manager for 4.5 years. And I've got all these people and they're reaching. Nick's just turned 31. Claire's 28. And they're getting to the point where you've invested time and effort in these people. And they've invested time and effort in you. Aaron is not moving. Lourdes is not moving. These people have bought houses next to us. They bought into the industry. They get a pay rise every year. They buy into us. We have a wonderful relationship. These guys are not going to get past them. So how does Nick become a head chef? Mm-hmm. So you go, what do we do? So we all sat down as a team and decided to do another pub, and a pub with a different confidence and a different angle and a different kind of idea. And it's an all day. It's open all day from breakfast all the way through to dinner, but it serves different things throughout the day, and it works on a meat and a no meat menu rather than 3-course a la carte. It's supposed to be a hub, so somewhere where you can just turn up. It's non-bookable, and it's based on the 17 seats, bar stools around the outside, and about another 20 odd seats around the outside of that. It's an L-shaped place. It's very small. It's a bit like, I don't know if anyone knows Barafina in Soho. Yeah. It's kind of like a British version of this tapas bar with seats around the outside, and it works as a hub, which is what I suppose a modern day local pub should be.
Absolutely. And do people expect to see you at either of your establishments these days? 2
years ago, yes, everyone was going, and you get letters of complaint saying, and Tom Kerridge wasn't even there. Now they don't expect to see you, so it's a really nice surprise when my ugly mug is there. So it's like I straighten my rota. My diary is structured. The first thing I say to Alex who's my PA, I say every week I have to do a day at the Hand of Flowers and a day at the Coach. At least one service at the Coach, so I'm there, so it's part of, for my own sanity. Because, I'm a chef. So even if I'm just, it's good for customers, it's good for staff, and it's good for me. Mm-hmm. So I'm there.
Now, talking of you being there, talk to me about the tension between customers and chef, because clearly, as you said, someone will say it's artistic, you will say it's more like carpentry or whatever, but I know that I would be quite fearful of sending something back, or indeed asking something to be cooked a little more. Where's that come from? Is that right? How do you feel when people
That's come from a 90s belief that posh restaurants, that you should be sat in silence, clinking cutlery and fine glasses, and whispering to each other across a table. That is not a fun night out. So then your idea of sat there and you're going, oh my God, my liver isn't cooked enough. Could I send it back? And a overbearing waiter that's at your table that, makes you feel uncomfortable because you've already ordered a £400 bottle of wine because you think you ought to, rather than all of that. You don't want that. You want people to come out and have a nice time. Going out and enjoying yourself is the main thing. Like, you don't behave like, if something wasn't right at a Bernie Inn or a Beefeater, you'd send it back because you would feel comfortable enough to go, well, actually, this isn't right. You should feel like that in every other restaurant. You should feel like that. What we want to be is to get it right in the first place, so you haven't got to send it back.
Sure.
So that's the main thing. But if you want to send it back, that should never be a problem. You want a steak well done, that's fine. If you want something, it's your money, you're paying for it. Why should we dictate how you have it? I think you should look, if you want steak well done, that's fine. I think really if you want well done bit of beef, you should look at a braised piece of beef because it kind of respects the animal a little bit more. But I haven't got an issue with well done steaks. If you want it like that, that's cool. That's
I'm
how
so
you like
glad
it.
to know. Samways, book me in. Tell me a little bit about space for time and fun. How do you get away from all of this? Clearly it's quite relentless. So what do you do for fun? How do you find space?
It's quite hard, to be honest. Last year was mental. Like, we did 3 TV shows.
So you're on TV all the time. How do you find
They're
that?
just repeats now. We did it.
I think the waiter's starting to give us a bit of a clue as well.
Yeah.
You're not helping continuity.
Yeah, so we did, last year we filmed 3 TV shows. We did a book, we did a new restaurant opening, we did Beth's major show. There was other stuff as well. And it's just, it's relentless. There's so much. This year there's a lot. I've kind of restricted the diary a little bit less, so we're not trying to do as much. We have a really shitty little beach hut down on the North Kent coast that we try and get away to. Best down there a lot more often than not. Sea Salt in Whitstable.
Lovely.
So it's lovely. Yeah, it's really nice. So we try to get down there, which is perfect for me and the dogs. We just get down and open the doors onto the beach and they're gone. But and it's probably, I might get down there once every 8 to 10 weeks. Beth is down there probably twice a month. So we hook up. We spend a lot of time in London. We spend a lot of time. Like, if we do stuff, then Beth will meet me afterwards. Or actually, Beth's year this year is massive. So she's got a lot. Last year and this year, she's doing a lot of. She's part of 3 shows. She's got her own big show coming up in November. So there's a lot of things going on for her. So we're very fortunate that the work that we do isn't work. I don't have a job. I have a life, and in that life is fun things and also shit things, like staff are idiots and customers are painful and suppliers haven't turned up with stuff. But that's part of the life that I've chosen. I haven't got a job. I have a way of life, and the same as Beth. So we both. It's all enjoyable. And downtime is, I try and go and watch football every now and then. I go and...
this is Marlow FC.
I watch Marlow. I watch Marlow, and I'm a season ticket holder at Old Trafford. So I'm a Man United fan, and I know loads of people hate you for that. But it's kind of like, it's one of those... you come from the West Country and there's no football team, you can't support Bristol because that's Bristol and you're in Gloucester, and it kind of and Liverpool. It comes from Liverpool with a team in the 80s, so to be different, I supported the rivals, which was Man United, and now they've done all right. But that's actually a really good thing that me and Beth do. Beth's from not too far from Manchester anyway, so we get up there and it's a 3.5-hour drive. And that's actually me and Beth time. We actually we sit in the car, so there's no telly, There's no work, there's no emails, because you can't email and drive. So you just sit there and talk to each other about stuff and what's going on and how we do fit. So that's downtime. Like the next big downtime is Man United Aston Villa in a couple of weeks' time. So I know we'll have a good catch up.
We're ramping up for that. Very good. Listen, we're almost out of time. So just one quick thing I want to say to the audience, and I've got some quick fire to finish on. You would have got a postcard, I hope, when you came in today. You'll notice that there's a little moon on here. It's a little token. So we've asked Tom, who's very kindly just offered to come and do this mistake, because he's so open-hearted, as you can tell, to nominate his 2 favourite charities, which are Battersea Dogs Home, and you'll can see from his tattoo, he's got a tattoo of his dog's paw, as you can see there, and also, as he mentioned, of his father, the MS Society. So as you leave today, 2 of my team will be stood at the back door with a chef's hat. We thought that was kind of, rather than an offertory plate, we thought we'd have 2 chef's hats.
I like that.
And you can nominate who you'd like to put your token into, and we will give the money to charity. These all represent money, and we'll give that money to Tom's 2 favourite charities, but it's your choice for coming along today, just so that you know. So quick fire question to finish on. Poached or fried?
Fried.
Fast or slow?
What are we talking about?
That's up
Slow.
to you. Adidas or Nike?
Adidas.
Twitter or Facebook?
Twitter.
Ramsey or Rhodes?
Ramsey.
Funny or kind?
Funny.
Breakfast or lunch?
Lunch.
BMW or Mercedes?
Mercedes.
Chocolate or crisps?
So it would always be crisp because you'd have them with beer, but now I don't drink. So chocolate, dark chocolate every now and then is a bit of a treat. So chocolate.
Got it. Nescafe or Lavazza?
Nescafe?
I know the true answer to that. I was going to say, don't fib to me. And the very last question, I can't ask you my James May question. I was going to ask if James May was single and could you fix me up on a date with him, but by all accounts he's not single, so I've missed the boat.
James Martin.
James Martin, sorry. Who's James? Oh, God, not James
the
May.
old dude.
What have I done to myself? The last question...
Note that down, Tony. There's a weird fetish there.
Deary me. I prefer Richard Hammond, the short one, actually, if I'm really fair. You talked about 2 stars. I know you said it could take you 10 years to get a 3rd star, so my final quick fire for you is 2 stars or 3.
I don't know what 3 stars would bring. So does every 1-star chef wants 2, every 2-star chef wants 3, and everyone without a star wants 1. So it's kind of like, I could not be happier. I wouldn't change a single thing now. Are we trying to get better every day? Yes. So
Perfect answer. Tom Kerridge, thank you so much.
Pleasure. No, thank you very much.